Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. Here I have another great article for you guys from Mike over at Light Reading. I will leave a link to it in the description so you guys could check it out for yourselves. So this is a very interesting development, right? T-Mobile has to play this smart on their part because they are still signaling capital light structure around fiber when it comes to the street and the market. Now, the name of the game in any business as it relates to wireless or wireline is scale. In order for it to make a change on your balance sheet, in order for it to bring new revenue stream, like a significant, meaningful revenue stream, you have to bring scale to the business. That's the only way this is going to work from a return on investment perspective. T-Mobile showed us that very early on wireless, that scale mattered. What did they do as soon as John got became the CEO? They bought Metro PCS. They knew they needed that PCS spectrum. They knew they needed the customers. They needed that scale. And then later on, they made a few smaller purchases as a standalone, right? They got Iowa Wireless and a couple of others. And then they went for Sprint, and they got Sprint. So now they have the scale to really compete, and it shows on their market cap. It shows on their free cash flow. The margins are getting better. They're operating it more as a bigger player now. That's how they're operating, right? Margins are getting better, profits are improving, and they're still not done yet. But as it comes to this JV deal in fiber, T-Mobile is a very small player. I mean, it's literally a drop in the bucket. If you look on the map, it's a very, very, very small dot that appears when it comes to even in 2028, as they claim 3.5 million homes passed with Lumos and EQT. That is a drop in the bucket. That's a couple of drops of water in the bucket. Nothing meaningful as it comes to scale. So analysts are saying, is it worth it? That's pretty much what they're saying. Just to summarize, is this really worth it? Because 3.5 million is a very small drop in the bucket. And then based on penetration, how much can you sell? Yada, 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 right? So T-Mobile claims they think they can get 20% penetration. That's good if they can sell that, but that's still small. And versus what they will invest over time, I don't know if that will make sense from a return on investment. So there is some BEAD funding available for the JV from the government that they could use to possibly gain more scale. But even that for T-Mobile would still be, just a couple of more drops in the bucket. I mean, look at where AT&T is today. 27 million homes passed, on the way to 30 million homes passed, and they have aspirations and goals to get to 45 million homes passed. It would take T-Mobile decades to get to that type of scale, if that's even a possibility with these smaller JV players. So what's the next step, right? The BEAD funding, it's great. I like it, but it doesn't gain T-Mobile any bigger scale beyond the footprint that they're operating in today. And that's in the North Carolina, Virginia area. That's where Lumos is operating, and this BEAD funding is not all of a sudden going to get them to Florida or Texas or New Mexico, whatever the case, right? So the only way they gain scale in this competitive, in highly capital intense business, right? They keep saying capital light, but the fiber business itself is highly capital intensive. It's very expensive to gain scale. Ask AT&T, ask Verizon, ask Google Fiber, ask any other business. They will tell you it's capital intensive. It's not capital light. So T-Mobile is taking the opposite direction, and they're trying to wholesale business, right? They're trying to wholesale it back from the fiber providers that are willing to wholesale the fiber. Now, the only way, and like I stated, how T-Mobile went about this on the wireless side, right? Metro PCS, then they got Sprint. So the only way for them to gain scale on fiber, and I'm going on record right now, is they have to buy a bigger player. That's the only way. There is no amount of capital light structure today that they can invest $1 billion per year that gains them any meaningful scale. Not going to happen. If they decided to say, okay, we are going to deploy our own fiber, we are going to do bit by bit by bit, $1 billion is not going to cut it. So what are they going to have to do? they're going to have to buy a bigger player. That's the only way this works. And when I mean a bigger player, I'm not even talking about Lumen. Like Lumen is possibly going up for sale. They only cover 2.7 million homes passed or businesses or both from what I saw. No, they need a frontier. They need a bigger player that gains them a substantial footprint in the industry today, in the wireline industry. They need a bigger footprint. That's the only way this will work if we're talking scale. And the only way that this is a successful venture for them is with scale. You can't do fiber small. It's not going to work. And then the other problem is too, right? How is the market in the street going to react if T-Mobile does buy a bigger player in the future that still has a good amount of copper, right? So T-Mobile is going to have to put forth capital to get that copper over to fiber, and that's expensive too. And that right there goes against everything that T-Mobile has been talking about capital light. So just wanted to put that in perspective, put that info out for you guys. So the BEAD funding is there. The JV player will take part in that, of course. It's free money for them, but it won't gain T-Mobile any more significant scale than what you saw presented recently during the quarterly earnings. In order for them to gain scale, and for them to be successful, the name of the game in wireline is scale. They're going to have to buy a bigger player. There is no amount of time, no amount of money that T-Mobile can put forth to do this on their own. It is not going to happen. T-Mobile will not embark on this journey by themselves. They will have to buy a bigger player. And that might happen in the outer years because right now they're signaling, and the street doesn't like surprises, so they're signaling capital light. Maybe in October, for the Capital Markets Day, where T-Mobile will present more of an analyst day type of setting for future outlooks. Maybe that's where they give us some more color around everything. But if I see a substantially bigger number on homes passed, I'm automatically going to think that's with a bigger player involved that they're going to buy. They're not getting to 20, 25, 30 million homes passed by themselves. It's not happening. They don't have it in their capital structure today. 9 to 10 billion capex is too low. They don't own and operate any wireline business. They have no experience. They need to gain experience. They need to hire a wireline team, and they need to get their capex to the 15 to $20 billion range to do any of that. And their margins today don't allow that. Their ARPUs are too low. The ARPA is okay, but they need much higher margins. Just think about this, right? And I'll leave you guys with this to close out the video, and you could do the math for yourself. T-Mobile is claiming to come in free cash flow at $16.9 billion for the year. That's with a 9 to 10 billion capex, or 8.6 to 9.4, whatever. If T-Mobile invested even 15 billion, right? That's 5 more billion. Let's just say, let's round up, let's say it's 10 billion. Let's get to 15. That's 5 more billion. Guess where they would have to take that out of? They have to take that out of the free cash flow. So you do minus 16.9 billion minus 5, and that's their free cash flow. Much lower, way lower. The street would immediately kill the stock if that were to happen. So they don't have the margins. See, Verizon, the difference between the players, Verizon and AT&T, they can spend 17, 18, 19, 20 billion on capex and still bring in a 17 to 18 billion dollar free cash flow. They have much higher margins. T-Mobile can't play in that league today. As the margins change, and I see, okay, T-Mobile is actually able to invest 15, 16 billion and still produce that type of cash flow, still do the dividend, still do the buybacks, right? Then I'd be like, okay, this is the T-Mobile that can actually do this. But this T-Mobile today at the current margins, and it's not hard to figure out, you can look at the numbers, they can't do it. They just simply cannot do it. If they have to take away from free cash flow to significantly increase the capex, their free cash flow is going to hurt, and the market is immediately going to dock them for it. So Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.